Hey everybody, welcome back to Smoky Hill Bonsai. Here it is, the weekend, and man, can I use a drink. Looks like you could use a drink too. Obviously, I'm talking about water, right? Anyways, here it is, about the second week of December, and you remember from an earlier video where I planted these trees in the yard. Well, it's been unseasonably dry here. We didn't get any of our normal fall rains. So I have a few tips for you. If you have newly planted trees in your yard and it hasn't rained, you need to be watering them, even if it's December and there's no leaves on the tree. So when you have newly planted trees, the root systems aren't reaching out beyond the nursery soil that they've been planted in. And that could dry out pretty quick, especially if you're not watering them or have gotten any significant rain. A key tip to start off with right away is if you have an irrigation system in your lawn, do not count on your irrigation system to water your trees. The next thing you need to know is when to water and how to know if you need to water. Okay, so let's take a quick look at the soil. The first thing we're going to do is take your soil knife or just your hands and rake your soil back. Now I did water these trees earlier in the day. Now you're gonna see some soil that is moist. What I like to do is just gently squeeze it, and if it'll squeeze into a ball like that, generally it's wet enough. It's really important to make sure that your soil is wet or moist, but not too wet. If you take your soil if you take your mulch and rake it back and get a hold of your soil and you can tell that it's really wet, and if you smell it and it smells really bad, your soil has been too wet for too long. Now, if you pulled the mulch back and on the surface you had soil that would not squeeze together, that would be way too dry. Okay, so what I like to do when I water is make sure that I have a garden hose that has a steady stream of water coming out the end of it. It doesn't have to be gushing, it should not be blowing your mulch out of place. Once I have a steady stream going, I like to take my cell phone and set the timer on it, usually for 20 to 30 minutes. Just so I can remember to come back and check it. If it's gotten enough water in that time period, I can move on to a new tree. If it has not, I would reset the timer. Now, basically what I'm looking for is when the base of the tree is no longer accepting water into the soil, and maybe it's running out into the lawn in front of it. Action. I want to reiterate that you want to make sure that when you're watering or during your water session that you're putting enough water down to wet the nursery soil that the plant came in, and that the surrounding soil is getting some water. If you don't give it enough water, it'll dry out too soon before your next watering, or especially if you're not checking it. If you're only getting water right on the surface and it's not getting down into the roots, obviously the tree can't use it. Now, obviously this time of year, the tree does not have leaves, so it's not using as much water as it would be maybe in June or July. Okay, so some tips for making sure that you're putting enough water down. Like I mentioned earlier, let your hose run, set a timer, come back, check it periodically. Ways to make sure that we can keep moisture around the tree for a little bit longer periods of time, or to make sure it doesn't dry out so fast, is to make sure that you have a nice covering of mulch around it. Now I have about 2 inches of fresh mulch around this, and I make sure that I pull the mulch back away from the trunk of the tree so there's not mulch up against the tree trunk. We don't want moisture sitting on the trunk of the tree. Also, sometimes in the wintertime, you might have rodents that like to nest down in here, and we don't want them up against the tree where they could chew on it and girdle it or something like that. So it's really important when you're watering to make sure the water is going at the base of the tree. And like I said, I like to set it down there, set a timer, and then I can walk away from it and the timer will remind me. One thing you don't want to do is something that can really be distracting, so that you're not paying attention to what's going on. The water should be going on the root ball, so you should be paying attention to what's going on. Amelia, put the water on the root ball. There you go. Set your timer. All right, walk away. Another thing people like to do when they have a new lawn and new trees, come home from work, go to the fridge, grab a nice can of beer or something refreshing, come out with their garden hose and stand there and just relax for a second, enjoy that beer, and water the tree. Again, you're probably not paying attention to making sure you're getting enough water on your tree. So follow the advice, slow stream of water, set a timer on your phone, and come back and check on it. Repeat the techniques of pulling the mulch back, checking the soil, seeing what it's like. Now, just to wrap up, these are new trees in the yard. We have stakes on them. The stakes are making sure that the root balls aren't blowing around in the wind so that those roots can go out and establish into some firm soil. We also have a tree wrap on this tree, and what we're doing here is protecting the tree from sun scald. Basically, the southwest sun in the wintertime could take this thin bark and warm it up with the sunlight, and then when the sun drops below the horizon line and it freezes again, it could damage the tissue, resulting in cracks, frost cracks in the tree. So it's wintertime. If it's dry where you are, make sure you're watering your trees. Make sure you have tree wrap on your new trees. Make sure that your tree ties are holding your tree into place, but not girdling. And then we're gonna set our trees up for success for the next season. Now, if you have new trees, check these things out. If you know of somebody that just planted trees in their yard, you might want to share this video with them. If this was good information, please hit the like button. And as always, I would really appreciate it if you would subscribe to the channel. So thank you, everybody. Happy holidays, and we'll talk to you again soon.